Good afternoon. This is week 4, and week 4 is titled Working with Trauma with Individuals and Family Systems. So, as always, there is a beginning overview video to talk about what is in store for this week. In terms of learning objectives, they are to explain the impact of trauma on individuals and families, and then to identify and explain how family theories guide intervention strategies and practice. The learning resources are as follows. In the Walsh book, the focus is Chapter 9, Structural Family Theory, and in pulling through these two links, it's Chapter 15, Generalist Practice with Abused and Neglected Children and Their Families, and then Chapter 16, Generalist Practice with People Who Have Experienced Trauma. There is a required video for this week, and the required video is to look at the film Ordinary People, and there are several places that you might be able to access that video. So, Ordinary People, some of you may have seen it before. You may need to refresh your memory about Ordinary People, and here are some of the places that you might try to access it. For requirements for this week, there are two. One is a discussion post, and the discussion post is on the film Ordinary People. So, you are to view the film and reflect on the relationships in the family and how trauma has impacted those relationships. So, you're going to choose one or two scenes from the movie and discuss the relationships and again the impact of trauma. What theory would you use to conceptualize these relationships and why? And use course material to support your chosen theory, citing as appropriate. Your response to one of your classmates needs to include the following. How did you view the family relationships and the impact of trauma differently from your peer, or if your views were similar, what can you add to your peer's discussion about this? If your peer chose a different theory to conceptualize the relationships than the one that you chose, how does your theory change the conceptualization of the relationships? And if you choose the same theory, what can you add to your peer's response? And as always, the initial post is due by Thursday, and the follow-up is due by between Friday and Sunday. Next, the only other activity for this week is the mid-semester evaluation. This is a time to give feedback on the course so far, so you would access it through this link. So, to talk about the focus for this week, which is structural family theory is action-oriented versus reflective. The focus is on family structure or the spoken, unspoken rules that organize family interaction. When appropriate rules, authority, subsystems, and boundaries are established, emotional lives and behaviors will be mutually satisfactory. And this theory works across diverse populations and complex problems. In terms of theory origination, Salvador Minuchin is the founder of the theory in the 1960s. It works with multi-problem families impacted by multi-systemic problems. It's influenced by social worker Virginia Satir, who developed family communications theory and interventions. It's also influenced the work of Harry Aponte, who developed a multi-systemic therapy approach in working with diverse families. Some of the major concepts. One is executive authority, which looks at where does primary decision making lie. Adult members should play that role. The social worker during assessment determines who has power, whether power shifts depending on circumstances, and how decisions are made. Another major concept is that of subsystems, which are patterns of interaction, boundaries, which could be internal, and internal boundaries are barriers that regulate the amounts of contact that members of subsystems are expected to have with each other, and they can be external, which refers to the separation of the family unit from outside systems such as other family members or community groups. Other major concepts continue to include rules, which are the behaviors and responsibilities to which each family member is expected to adhere, roles, which refer to family members' functions within the family systems, alliances, conditions in which two family members or subsystems interact cooperatively, and triangles, alliances in which two family members turn their attention to a third member for relief or supports when in conflict with each other. Some other major concepts continued include flexibility. Families need to adjust their structures to accommodate the predictable and unpredictable changes in the lives of their members. Communication, the practice of how families convey messages, is important in all our theoretical approaches. This theory is aimed at achieving verbal and nonverbal congruence and rules that are observed consistently. Additional concepts, as always, we have to take into consideration culture, and that not all families interact the same, so the approach has to take this into consideration. Family goals are not always stated, but members tend to develop a sense of purpose in a family. Family life cycle stage functioning depends on composition, so are there children, are there older adults in the home? Who are the members of the family? Family myths are the shared beliefs in the family that evolve in an effort to define itself, set external boundaries, and protect against conflict. And the last is external systems influence. So, problems and change. Problems are around power imbalances, subsystem boundaries that are too rigid or too diffuse, and when members are resistant to normal family change processes. Assessment, and this is a little harder to read, but the social worker in this approach is highly directive and even during assessment takes charge but connects with all family members. Does not rely on lengthy information gathering, but gets at the root of the problem as identified by the family. Information gathering is based more on observation and a non-threatening interchange. Family members are encouraged to enact versus describe what is going on in the family, and this can be facilitated through role plays. And during this enactment, social worker identifies problematic interactions, observe communication patterns, and structural patterns of concern. Intervention, repetition is often necessary for change. The worker is supporting system strengths. Relabeling or normalizing a problem helps family members develop a new perspective that is more constructive. Problem solving is part of the intervention, and teaching stress management skills is also part of the intervention. In terms of that intervention continued, one of the goals is to help the family modify rules through discussion and mutual decision making, to manipulate space or assigning members to stand or sit in configurations that illustrate structural characteristics. communication skill training, role play, and assignment of tasks to complete between sessions. Endings. How do you know that the intervention has been successful? Well, the readings talk about formalized instruments that could be used to measure success. Time measures is another way to evaluate the consistency of measures over a period of time to determine their permanence. The worker will look at the quality of the role plays and to monitor external interactions through self-report and the consensus of family members. And here are some of the references that were used in the construction of this PowerPoint that again is based on the readings in Theories for Direct Social Work Practice, which is the main text for the class. So, if you have any questions about the assignments for this week, please let me know as quickly as possible. I wish you a good week, and I look forward to reading your post. Thank you.